I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Randall.
Here.
Mr. Gore.
Here.
Mr. Allen. Here. Mr. Chilby.
Here.
Any additions or subtractions to today's agenda?
I don't have any.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any corrections to the February 14th minutes? Pretty short.
I'll make a motion on
All those in favor?
it. Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. March schedule.
Well, we have to meet for sure the 12th and the 26th for sure. And I don't know next week if you want to meet to critique the budget one more time or you're good with it after later. I don't, it's up to you guys.
12th and what?
12th and 26th for sure you have to meet. The 5th is just if you want to look at the budgets one more time before, because I have to get it in the system. Probably next week when our hearing date will be.
We have those different levy levels and addressing the ending fund balance or not?
I did. I emailed both last week. Okay, I emailed it, but I have it in your packet too to discuss that, so.
I've got a question. If the jail runs over budget, where's the money gonna come from?
Lottery ticket.
I'm curious
Make
why-
sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. John will be on the phone today at 9:30, so. It's gonna have to come from the general. There's no other, I mean, the ARPA's gone. If the ARPA's gone and that 400,000 is gone from the general, the rest's gonna have to come from the general because we can't bond more than $5 million.
That's all I
So,
wondered, do we wanna change that this year?
I don't know.
Just like yours, Jason.
I don't know why we said 5.3 million on a bond issue and we've got a $6.3 million projection already.
Exactly.
And my thought is I'd wait a year. To be on the safe side.
Wait a year to do it.
To change the levies.
We can't reduce general basic. We gotta leave that the same, but we could reduce general supplemental and transfer into that if the board chooses. Have that all in your packet, in your budget packet. Discuss that when we talk budgets later. Or just different scenarios I came up with.
Yeah, I read that on the email.
So the 12th.
26.
26th.
I make it motion.
All those in favor of the March schedule?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comment on EMS advisory board and the annual report. Is that
We just see if any comments from the public, because I have not received anything since it was filed in my office, but
nothing written?
nothing written, oral, nothing. I don't know if the board received any comments on any of it.
Nope.
And I talked to Sandy yesterday, she had not either. Yesterday afternoon when I talked to her, so.
I'm seeing as how there's no public comment. I guess we'll move on to the next thing. Approve to reappoint Gary Stewart to the Civil Service Commission.
I'll make that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve amendment to Quick Trip Class E retail alcohol license.
All that happened there is they changed the treasurer on their permit, so they had to file a new permit and the board has to approve it again.
I'll make that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Approve compensation and fee disclosure statement with the sheriff department.
Just normal fees, or this is agreement with the sheriff department as they do our self-funding part. And I had Nolan review it all, and he didn't have any problems with it, so.
Any comments, questions, or concerns? I take a motion.
I'll make that one.
We already reviewed it, no comments. We didn't receive any comments
Oh,
either,
okay.
it's just, yeah, we don't.
Alright,
Have you received anything, Sandy?
yeah,
Any comments? Had you received
no,
anything?
no, so then that's all right.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Huh?
Yeah. All those in favor?
Okay.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve business associates agreement with the sheriff department. Any questions, comments, concerns? I take a motion.
I'll make that motion. I support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve ISAC group benefits program effective July 1st, 2024.
So that would be our health insurance, so we're doing the 11E and 12C, and then the dental plan is Plan 2, and then the vision is all the same as what we've had currently. We just need to approve it for July 1st.
Motion for its approval.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve, disapprove, going on tax credit application.
I didn't make copies of them, but, talking to Chantry, the ones that are signed are the ones that are allowed, and the ones that are not signed are just.
ask this every year, but why are so many of those not completely filled out with all the information you need?
Go to Sharon's office, I don't know, what are they?
I think there's like old relationship to owner, like all the stuff that's highlighted that's usually not filled out, that you have to have on there to get it.
Come over, Sharon's one that brings them over to my office, and she actually has to get them in the system, so. I thought it all was, because I asked about that, because I knew that would be a question.
Not even remotely close. Most of them are filled out. It's 9:00. You guys want to table this until?
Sure.
Alright. 9:00, we'll open the public hearing for the budget amendment for fiscal year 23-24. What do you got for me?
I have not received any oral or written comments. It was kind of pretty self-explanatory. What the revenues is Keith received from the insurance company. And then the other money received was from home health for $34,889. That was COVID grant money. So it's an in and out deal that they received. And Keith received 1.244 million, I think, in insurance money that he put it in the system. A lot of the expenses is Nolan had training fees and a software. Sandy for the ambulance was like wages and supplies and equipment. My office, I had the mailings that I had sent out for the bond, and I had to get new laptops for my 5 out of my 8 precincts need new laptops. The storage shed, I didn't have enough budgeted for that, and then the office supplies and the the supervisors was that mailing that we had to mail out beginning of this month, and training and the drainage right away, and then of course I budgeted $400,000 for the jail remodel. $100,000 is coming out of ARPA money and $400,000 is coming out of the general basic. So then this current fiscal year we had $400,000 budgeted to go into the jail remodeled fund. So I reduced that to 0, and then I added $81,530 to be transferred into the EMS levy fund, and $150,000 we're going to put into the ambulance fund. So that's why the transfers is a negative $168,470. Just normal operations, and Keith for equipment, and so it's the first budget amendment of the year.
Sorry, on the 400,000 for the jail, can you restate that, or?
Well, I added it in the expenses, the 400,000 in the expenses to come out of general, but we were going to do a $400,000 transfer into general basic. I zeroed that out and put that, and then added the 150 to ambulance and the 8150 to the EMS fund. That's why we're a negative 168,470 for the transfers.
Thanks.
And then I added the 400,000 for the jail remodel in general basic this year. Since we already had to budget it, we might as well use it. So we'll see how much we use. But all the expenses today are coming out of general. So
Let's see that.
let's go with that. That's my little cheat sheet that I had. Oh, that's what I had to do. That's when we approve it, I get to hit the OK button, and then all goes into the budget.
Because I can't find it over here.
It's in your that stuff that's paper clipped together.
I went through that.
And did I do that for you? You don't have this part in there. You have this part in the resolution. Oh. Okay, so here's the resolution.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have the budget in there behind that. I messed up. Oh, you're supposed to have, you guys don't have this sheet in here? You're supposed to have that, oh yeah, you have it right there.
I don't,
Oh, I don't know what I did then, I'm sorry.
sure just picking on.
I was trying to figure out how far you guys are gonna get on the agenda to, how to put your packet. Yeah.
It's so messed up now, doesn't it?
That's why I thought I would just paperclip all the time scheduled stuff. Oh, yours is right here.
It's okay, I'll use this one.
Sorry. At least I know I didn't screw up.
Is there being no comments from the public, or just a close the public hearing? If there are no further questions, I would take a motion on that resolution.
Motion for the approval of resolution 24.
Vote.
Mr. Randall?
Aye.
Mr. Schulte?
Aye.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Helmers? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I would note that there will be a DOT format of that budget as well, since this is, that'll bring up for the final signature.
So they should, because I had it on the agenda to prove that as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's
Right.
the next item.
I didn't know if it was supposed to be a separate item or not, so I
Oh,
did
that's
it.
fine to make it a separate item.
Okay.
Approved fiscal year 23-24 DOT budget amendment.
Make a motion for that approval.
Support.
Mr. Randall?
Aye.
Mr. Schulte?
Aye.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Helmers?
Aye.
We have 5 minutes before the next item if you want to go back to the committee for tax reports. Have they started doing anything, Keith, with the shop yet, or no?
I've just been reviewing shop drawings at this point.
Is there a finish by date on that?
Yes, I don't recall what it is, but there was a finish date in the contract.
I pile. A lot of piles this time. A lot of stuff on the agenda this time. A lot of piles. There's the 9:15 agenda in case the board has any questions on the bond.
It's too bad a price.
That's for every employee, not just the elected, everybody. So I didn't think that was bad at all. In our townships and.
Recommendation is approval of the signed ones only, or?
Mm-hmm. The ones that aren't signed are disallowed.
How come they're in here?
Well, because we need them, because if they currently have family farm, then we need to remove them from the. That's why.
Gotcha, thank you.
How would you like to have the motion just be signed?
Yeah, or just approve the approved and disallowed the family farm fund recommendation from the assessor's office.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
You ready, Ed?
I'll take a motion if someone wants to make one.
I'd make the motion.
Support. All those in favor?
The motion is what?
To approve, disapprove family farm tax applications.
Just sign ones, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, for the motion, approve and disapprove the application that's submitted by suggestions upon the assessor's office, because they're the ones that gave the recommendation.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 9:15, resolution 25, bond approval.
Can I get Tom and Becky in here?
64.
For Becky?
No.
So, does anybody have any questions in regards to this? Basically, what we need is yes to go ahead and get the policy issued on those bonds for your elected officials as well as the township clerks. It's $893, the premium is a year, and that's basically your auditor, your engineers, the board of supervisors, treasurers, auditors, all those elected officials. And then for the township clerks, it's 194 a year. So that's what that bond would be. It suffices for the minimum of $20,050 for Becky at the county treasurer. There's a couple different companies we could look at. The reason we chose this company is that it's the one that asked the least amount of personal questions of all of the employees. And that would be everybody in the courthouse that they want personal information on. So I think Rochelle has a resolution. If you guys are okay with that.
And Nolan reviewed it, and I had Becky and Bill review it to make sure I had everything right, and I got their blessings, so. So once it gets approved, then Nolan will have to take it to a district judge to finalize this.
Right, so you'll sign this if you approve it. We'll have the company issue the policy, and then it goes back to Nolan to the district judge
Under
to
point
sign.
1, it identifies an annual cost of $930. Those two numbers,
That's a 12.
two numbers you gave me don't add up to that.
194 and 893.
Without using a calculator, I hope I'm right in saying
Yeah, it
that.
doesn't.
Yeah.
1,087.
Yeah. Under
Because we have that.
930.
You guys are covering the difference, that's nice.
I'm not sure, Rochelle, with the 930 and the 194. We may have to make that correction on there.
Okay. Okay,
I didn't catch that either.
okay. Well, I thought that's what Bill told me.
Yeah, I think he may talk to you,
Okay.
but I reprinted this here. I have 893 for this and 194.
That's 1,087.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make that change then. 1,087 then.
I was gone last week, so, and he's gone today unless there was something different, but I don't have any other communication on that.
Okay, so I'll make that change to 1,087 then.
Like bait and switch, or you guys are picking up the difference? Now, if the legislation, there is legislation to pull that out of the code this session, if they do pull it out of there, are we able to cancel that and get it refunded?
You would be able to cancel your bonds, and then they would have that issued to you. So I don't look for that to happen, at least not this year, so probably prior to the renewal next year, if legislation has since changed. This has been going on for a while, and
Would there be a prorated refund for the portion of the year that? My guess is about 4:30 a.m. the last hours before session ends. We'll find out if that happens or not.
There's no further questions, I can take a motion.
Make that motion. To approve on that pursuit code.
suggested dollar amount referenced in, or identified in there?
Yes.
Support?
Mr. Dowers?
Aye.
Mr. Vanderhook?
Aye.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Schulte?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so I think everybody has to sign this, so before I forget, and I'll make the changes.
Do you want that effective as today's date? Do you want to do
March
It's
1st.
effective as soon as the judge approves it, yeah.
March 1st on the quote? That's, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, March 1st is
March
Friday,
1st.
so.
Okay, we'll do that then. Okay. Any other questions for us? Okay.
So you'll
thank you
give
for
me
your
the
time.
policy?
Yes, we'll get that. I told Seth, the bonds person
Okay.
today, that you guys were meeting and voting, so I would email him back and
Okay,
get that rolling.
okay,
So
awesome.
hopefully we have that policy back in hand in a couple of weeks.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
We can start the discussion about the updates to the right away, but I don't think we'll be finished by the 9:30.
We have that in here or not?
Should be this little piece
There
thing.
you go. Okay. Put it in there.
I tried really hard to make this simple for you guys. But it was like impossible this
You
time.
didn't put papers and everything.
I know, I did too. He
They
found
did. They
it.
moved them out of the packet.
I think you slipped it over.
Whatever.
Oh, floor is yours, Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was approached to look at, instead of a zoning affecting how hazardous utilities are done, not getting into that fight or getting into that issue, and still instead looking at more of a performance measure in the right-of-way ordinance. So not something that would tell hazardous utilities where they can or can't go, but if they are going to go in our right-of-way, what the expectation is going to be. So the current right-of-way ordinance does have some, or the current right-of-way permitting does have some language that is kind of nebulous and says that we can or may impose other requirements. I guess what we would do instead is to just hard code those into the right-of-way ordinance. The right-of-way is allowable for these types of utilities, but in essence, it is a hazardous location for them as well, in that our operations and other utilities go into our right-of-way, so there is more likelihood of damage than if they were in a private easement somewhere. They can't help but cross our right-of-way at certain locations, but certainly if they were going to want to try to run alongside or inside our right-of-way, we would want these same performance requirements to be done. So first off, we would define what we consider to be the hazardous utilities. I lifted that definition from elsewhere, and it was actually the definition that's kind of in our permit. Just kind of put that in the code to start off with. So we're not singling out any one type of utility, but simply trying to make these requirements apply to anything that we would consider hazardous, flammable, poisonous, asphyxiants, things like that. We require a depth requirement, so 5 feet below ditch flow line. Require encasement fully within the right-of-way. So if we're crossing the right-of-way, that wouldn't necessarily be much of a cost, but if they were want to try to run for miles and miles inside our right-of-way and use our right-of-way, the encasement requirement would then add a significant expense. That could be considered more of a deterrent for them not to be in our right-of-way, to run along it, but to just cross it when they need to. And then we would require, trench warning and warning markers on each side. I also put in here as an idea to prohibit any type of valves or structures within our right-of-way. They would have to then put those outside in easements. We wouldn't want those to be in the way of any of our operations, both ditch cleaning or snow operations, things like that. So that was my first thought of adding some performance measures if we wanted to try to, tighten up the right-of-way ordinance in the permitting location so that they know what they're getting into if they want to go through our right-of-way, while at the same time trying not to wade into the fight that's going on among several counties with using the zoning code. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions or any other types of requirements that you might have in mind.
We'd still leave the language in though that says that you would still have the ability to add things at the time of submittal.
We could leave that in the permit. I mean, this would become the floor, the minimum requirements. And then we could modify the permit language to reference the right-of-way ordinance and say that there would, or other additional requirements as may be determined.
I guess I'd like to see that language left in there.
Still have more
To give
flexibility.
you more flexibility in the event there was something that we missed.
Right. Anything that's flexibility is also a fight. But if you put it hard in the right of way, the minimum requirements become inarguable. It's like, well, no, this is what you have to do. But there will always be arguments. We've seen this in the past where we'll say to do one thing and they'll argue and sometimes come before you for consideration. But I think the more you have in the language of the ordinance, the better.
Encased in a steel sleeve within the limits of the right of way. I guess, I mean, I get it in concept, but aren't you just pushing a greater problem on neighboring landowners then, potentially?
Well, the idea is
Or-
that they may be traveling and traversing across our county, and at some point they're going to cross the right of way. I think that inside the right of way, you have more opportunity for damage to that pipeline from other utilities going in or our operation. So that's where the encasement would come in.
I know to cross the railroad, it's the same thing. Even if it's a water line, you've got to encase that thing to run under the railroad tracks.
Yes. And no one questions the railroad.
That's the standard I want to try to emulate.
I like the idea. I think it makes sense. I do.
I would like to not see any more valves in the ditches.
Of
We already have valves sitting in some of the right of ways.
of hazardous pipelines or just water valves or?
Water valves and whatnot. But they really shouldn't be in the right of way.
Well, if it's a longitudinal line, it's kind of unavoidable to have a valve.
You still are on either side of your easement that you're running that pipe through.
So you're saying run it out to a valve and then run it back in, if you had a longitudinal utility.
Yeah. And it creates a lot of issues for folks, because nobody expects some of that stuff to be there, and some of those, they left the risers up. I know Mike O'Connor made him cut those down to ground level, because when you're tripping through there with a snowmobile or something, and you've got this 3-foot pipe sticking up out of the ground for that riser for the valve,
Okay.
it can become
Well,
an
our
issue.
mowing as well.
Mowing, side-by-sides, four-wheelers, I mean,
So we do require valves to be flush.
yeah. I think this is a good start to have something better in place.
I would also add that, one of the issues that we had with the right-of-way ordinance a year ago was the bonding requirement, which we suspended for a time as we worked with, it was REC, I believe. Their lawyer never really engaged. Once the urgency went away, he went away. So as we bring forward the ordinance to do this, I'm probably going to clean up that language too. Nolan and I had discussed, basically it came out with REC was that the various state utilities that are required or regulated for certain aspects in the right, we were going to try to massage that language into our ordinance about waiving the bonding requirement for those utilities.
So would there be bonding requirements?
This would have bonding for this type of utility because they're not.
They're not a utility.
Right. So And we did just get a permit in a week or two ago from Premier wanting to do new fiber optic down in Ashton. And I relayed to them of the bonding requirement. So haven't heard back from them on that yet.
Because I know that, I think EverTech is gonna be running fiber through May City in that area over there this summer as well. I don't know if they've submitted any applications for a permit or anything, but
Yeah.
they've already handed out the easement agreements or whatever to let them come through and
Sure.
run the wire, but
So this does cover crossing as well.
Yes. I think crossing is where we're really going to see it more often.
Yeah. Does the use of utility or citing utility only become an issue if it's a private venture?
I can look into that, see how the definition is maybe on state law and things like that. Or we say we may make it private or public utility. I can just add private or public utility. Well, if there's general consensus to look into doing this, then we'll start modifying the language of the ordinance and start making the public publication for public hearing and things like that, and start bringing this back before the board.
Sounds good. Okay.
thanks, Keith.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, Jail district application review estimate, the pay application for February 27th.
Are you okay if I call John? No?
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been
Already
disconnected
skipped
or
town
is
with the
no
money.
longer in service.
Oh, I know what I did. Okay.
I couldn't do that back and forth.
Wow. That's right.
You're what? John Hanson speaking.
Hey, John, this is Rochelle from Osceola County. We're in the board meeting to discuss the jail.
Okay, that sounds great. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
What?
I thought I didn't have it again.
You guys should all have this sheet and then the jail site, the remodel on the west side of the courthouse. And so it's your time to ask questions. Do you want me to make it, do you want me to not make that front and back for you? I was trying to say paper here. Here, if I just take one, I'll take one, I'll just.
Same thing with the roof. Yeah.
Well, they're gonna put a new roof over the whole thing. Over what's there now too.
But we went from roof repairs to, we doubled the cost of the roof repairs. Cause they had that figured into the other one.
So on the west side, the option on the west side of the building, I had Rick move the building, so he moved the building as far away as he could. I mean, we can possibly go another 2 foot. But also, I assume that they're gonna wanna put some parking in on the north side of the courthouse at the main entrance. And then when the building comes down the old jail building, then we can put a drive out there to the, I can't remember, is that 6th Street or out there anyways, so that you can have they can drive through. So basically, I'm just looking to get the architect moving ahead and everybody moving ahead if it's satisfactory to go on the west side at this time. And then I'm redoing some of the estimates based on some things that I'd come up and visit with the board about after we approve the location.
John, this is Mike. This whole thing started at a little over 5 million. How did we get over 6 million?
I sent a estimate of probable costs. Right now, you're showing about $1 million worth of contingency based on the $5 million bond and the
ARPA money?
And ARP money and 400,000 from general. The reason that you're a little bit higher is because we've added on to the building to attach on the south side of that building. And originally we weren't doing much renovation in the existing building, but after the bond passed and we talked to everybody, they wanted to do a little bit more renovation in the existing building. The public toilets would be one, that they're not handicap accessible at the time. And plus, if we tear the jail down, we're gonna have to reinforce that wall there. And then the existing roof repairs are more extensive than when I got up there and took a look at it, they're a lot more extensive than what we originally thought.
Why did we go to the voters without making sure that was the case? I recall the estimates being in the $4 million range, and the ARPA money was gonna be the 1 million to get us to around 5 to 5.3. So to have 5.5 million be the starting point, I'm not figuring out how we got there.
Well, right now, you're at 4.2 on construction, 4.2. So, and that's adding the 300,000 in existing building renovations that I added in there. And as you go, the bonding attorney and bonding issues expenses go up based on what your estimate is. And we weren't putting in paving or anything before, but so, I mean, you don't have to issue all the bonds. I mean, we don't have to issue all the bonds. We can get it down to where you want it to be. I'm just showing you what you have available, because other supervisors asked me, what do we got for contingency, or we're concerned that if the project came in over, that we would not have the money. But I'm showing right now that you have, if you were to issue all the bonds, that you'd have in around $1 million in contingency.
Why did all the base fees go up so much for the architect and construction?
It was based on the renovation portion of it. He wasn't doing much renovation before, but and it's based on cost of construction. So if the project comes in lower, his fee will lower, and then he'll fix it. So I'm just showing where it's currently at. So if we can get the project in, under budget for the construction, then that fee cost could come down some, depending on the amount of renovation that we want to do in the existing building.
Have you thinking about doing renovations? Where does renovations come from?
I was told that we wanted to try to get some stuff in there for the voting machines, an area for the voting machines, and we're putting an evidence room in there in part of it, and then public toilets. You know, they want to get emergency management in there because now his building's coming down. So we're not doing it all at once, and we're not even bidding it at first. So that, you know, only a portion of it would be bid, and then we determine as a board what all we wanted to do, and we get estimates put together based on how the project came in and everything else, and what we needed to absolutely get done for, you know, like the parking that on the south side of the courthouse. If that's something that's something that, you know, is a priority, then we got to prioritize what we want to do as a group and vote on it.
I don't think it's worth tearing down that old jail building. Cause I can guarantee you, you're not getting that thing tore down for $80,000. We tore down 3 single-story buildings in downtown Hartley, and they were in that neighborhood. There's no way you're getting that thing tore down for $80,000. Plus the asbestos abatement, cause I'm sure there's some in there.
250 is cool. See if you can get down to that.
Well, I think the estimate on the old Hartley High School to tear that down was 1.2. And that's a big building. But there was a tiny little cleaners. There used to be a laundromat thing for dry cleaning next to my office over there. That was $75,000 2 years ago to tear down that building. And they couldn't get the asbestos out of it, and then they had to put it all into a big side and wrap it in plastic in order to haul it. So if you're telling me you're gonna get this big old building torn down for $80,000, I'm telling you it's not gonna happen. I think emergency management in that.
Well, that's not going to be bid as part of the project. So, I mean, we can bid that separate, at least get a bid. I mean, we don't have to make a decision whether it comes down now or later. What we basically need is determine if we move ahead with the west side of the building in lieu of the north side of the building with the jail addition.
I would shove the EMS up the ambulance. That was the case.
If they're not taking the house down, I'd leave him where he's at.
I have no interest in leaving that house stand unless it becomes someone else's venture, which I highly doubt would happen, but
I'd be more comfortable not doing any renovations in the old part of the jail. That's what I'd be more comfortable with. I mean, you're gonna have to do a little bit, but you don't really need to make new office space. That's my opinion, in the old jail.
And we already have public bathrooms in there. And front end of that thing.
Yep.
And your grandfathered in for everything, but once you start making repairs in there, you're gonna have to bring everything up.
is this currently designed to federal standards to house federal inmates, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can, on federal inmates, we used to do that, but you have to guarantee them a space too. And if you have anybody in there, you gotta ship them out. But, it's the current state standards and federal standards, yes.
Is it cheaper to go without that?
No, yeah, it's gotta be, the state is almost the same as the federal requirements. The only difference on federal requirements is you have to have individual cells, maximum security, you can't double bunk like we are in some of the medium security cells that you have. So it is more costly if you do all individual cells, yes.
Well, I just see on the plans it says north, medium / max. Do we have to have maximum?
There's 2 maximum security cells in there, which are individual cells, and then two medium security, which are double cells, double bunk. Because it's a lot less expensive to do double bunk. You only have to come up with 40 square foot instead of 120 or whatever, or 80 square foot for an individual cell of unencumbered space.
I don't know that those max cells are necessary in this effort. Can't the special status cells accomplish that?
The special status cells are negative air pressure for airborne contaminants and suicide watch, along with the holding cells. So they have negative air pressure, so the air is not recirculated within the building. I mean, they can be used for maximum security cells, but I'd have to add space on to add medium, to switch the max to medium, but it can be done. But what the sheriff's looking for is the number of classifications he can get also. So you can get, one classification in each of those cells. So, I mean, if you want to switch to medium, they can be switched to medium. But really what I'm looking for today, because that if you wanted to do that, you ought to know what the cost is or the savings is to do it. So.
You guys talk about the renovations in the old jail at all? Where'd that come from? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't never talk about them.
Well, in the middle of a project like of this scope, I think it makes sense to make that space more usable. I get the hesitancy to do the renovations, but if you're talking old cells that can't be utilized within that structure, then we haven't accomplished a great deal as far as
Well, I'm just trying to keep the cost down.
space. No, I get it.
Well, you want the flexibility too within your new facility, some flexibility. I mean, I was even looking at possibly, I'm doing an estimate right now, to look at adding one of the future GP areas on and what that cost might be associated, so that I could come up there, visit with you, and we could look at that also. So I wanted to do that in person in a board meeting, so we could look it over and then make decisions such as this. If we want to do some switching, now would be the time. So basically, I was just making sure that we were good on the west side of the building, and then we'll sit down and possibly get some estimates put together, and sit down and look at the overall site and what you might want to do. So everything right now is just in estimates. So the good thing is that they said it's only 4 to 6 months for precast now. So that's a lot better than a year and a half that we've been dealing with, or a year.
Yeah, they said it's like a year and a half before for Palo Alto.
You said they're 48 months
No,
out?
46.
Or 46?
4 to 6 months, right?
Yeah,
Four
for
to
precast.
okay.
Yeah.
It was, 12 to 13 months before. So that'll work out perfectly and get the architects and engineers going and get this thing ready to bid by June, July. They'll be able to get the underground in and then work through the winter setting precast steel and getting the roof on so that we won't have to use temporary heat on the facility too. Which is a tremendous savings if we don't have to use temporary heat, so.
How did you figure the bond issuance expense? What did we come up with that, Dave?
Based on other projects,
Remember, I was
I know it was
look it up.
28,000 for the bonding attorney on,
It was 5 something.
Palo also, and, bond issuance expense usually runs about 1 and 1.5%. So, I mean, those are just estimates, so they'll be adjusted. In that second column on the project cost recap, if it comes in less, then we add that money. We had a change order deduct to get the original amount lowered, and it will move the other money that's not used back into contingency.
It's 20 or 25.
Yeah, I think that's about 5 times high. Spear quoted 5,200 plus 3,000 per million.
It's 15,000 and maybe 20,000 though, what we thought.
1,200. So we have that document in hand. We should, in my estimation, have that. I get wanting that room for contingency, but when we have a contract in hand stating what the bonding is going to cost us, I would hope that that would be reflected a little more accurately. And I know I got to think.
It will be reflected accurately when you go to do the bond, and I can confirm that with Maggie. But when you go to do the bond, it will be accurate, because the exact amount will go in there. I may be a little bit on the high side. It's usually 1.5% to 2%. 1.5% of $5 million is 75,000. And if we go 5 million times 0.02, that's 100,000 times 0.02. So it depends on what the issuance expense you pay is. I can confirm that with Maggie for you too, just make sure, but. And that was based on estimates that Maggie provided there before you decided what the bond was going to be or what amount you wanted to pass. That was sent back in 6/8/23. And I went 3.93865 on the construction. And now we're at 4.238. So.
So you'll be here in person at some point to discuss whatever needs to be changed with this.
We want to pay for him to drive here.
Well, you said he was coming in person. hours.
Well, I gotta come up there anyways, yeah, we have to
Mileage
sit down
charge.
and go over some of it, yep.
Reimbursables.
To me, it's pretty simple. Don't do the renovations, gets us in there pretty close. Yeah, we can pick a few of these other things too. But that's my opinion, because we may have to use that money to tear down the old house if that's what we're gonna do. Eventually.
On 6/8, when we did the original estimates, when you were deciding on bond, before we went to vote, you're at 5.283, and right now you're at 5.745. So you're in the same range, and that was adding the extra 300,000 in for existing building renovations that's in blue. So, I mean, you're about 200,000 higher than what you were a year ago or whatever.
On the page, I'm not understanding why we have a recommended contingency and then additional contingency based on $6,457,000 of funds. Why are we
Because
showing?
that's what you have available, that's just what you have available. You don't have to issue that much if you don't want to. I'm just showing, you passed the bond for $5 million. You have the 100 and some that you had appropriated. I'm just showing you what you had. That's not what you have to do.
Okay.
You had $5 million in bonds, and then 1,057,000 in ARP funds, and then you had appropriated 400,000 from the general fund. I'm just showing that. That's not what we have to spend, that's not what we have to do, and that's not what we have to issue. I mean, if you want to issue $4 million of bonds, then we'll issue $4 million after the bids come in. But what I was asked is how much protection we had if the project came in over bid. And you have close to $1 million of protection right now. And I figured 300,000 for tearing that building, you know, you had 80,000 in there for building demolition and 300,000 in there for building that wall back. So between the two, I thought that was a good estimate. So, I mean, you don't have to issue all that money.
What do we do? And we'd have those funds available to prepay on the, whenever that date comes, potentially.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be 5-10 years down the road.
We budgeted 400,000 this year too, right? Didn't you leave it in the budget?
We didn't use just all our ARPA money, I think for next year, we didn't use any general basic funds for the jail for next fiscal year. Cause we allocated the 400, cause John thought it'd be about 500,000 we needed this fiscal year to June 30, so 400 is coming out of general and then 100,000 is coming out of the ARPA money.
So the only decision is from us.
And I wouldn't anticipate
Pay the bill
the
and you want it
bonds
on the
typically.
west side of the building. Right, John, what they have to approve today is the jail location, you're on the west side, and then the apps or the bills that you submitted, correct?
Correct. And the bonds wouldn't be issued till after the project was bid. So then as a board, we make a decision on how much of bonds we want to issue at that time.
So if the board just approves the location and the pay apps, then they can critique more of the floor plan later, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
They
and
had
I
that
would come
question.
up to do that. Yes. So I figured I'd be up there in 2 weeks, but this will allow them to get started on the site plan. And, once we get the plans put together, we've already talked about getting a variance to put it over on that west side, with the city, so.
Alright, we need to move this along, because we got a 10 o'clock, so.
Yeah.
I need a motion on approving the relocation of the west side and the bill for $70,584 in fees for the start of this project.
I'd make that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So did you hear that, John?
Yeah,
Okay,
appreciate it. And then I'll schedule a time that we can come up and sit down and go over the plan with everyone also. So
okay,
if we can, set up a workshop or something.
okay. The week of
Okay.
the 12th, there's gonna be a couple board members that are gonna be gone to ISAC, including myself, so just
Okay.
FYI.
Okay.
All right, thank
That
you.
sounds-
Any other
Thanks, bye.
questions?
Bye.
Excuse me, Ed, what is that amount, $70,000?
$594.30.
$594.35.
594, 35.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 55,000 of that is for schematic design. 7,500 other construction management fee. $456 is bid document reproduction costs. $55 is, well, that's the 55 for that. The 456 is the reimbursement allowance. Then there's $3,300 for soil reports and $4,200 to Jacobson Western Yard for civil engineering for staking for a topographical survey. That sums it all up. Here's your itemized bill. I kind of need to got at the auditor's office. 10 o'clock, we've got a closed session for union negotiations. I would take a motion from anyone to go into closed session.
Make that motion. Support.
Mr. Shelby?
Aye.
Mr. Helmers? Mr. Van Hook?
Aye.
Mr. DeWard?